He never thought a job interview would feel like a lifeline. But that morning, as Michael stood in the quiet hallway of his marketing office with his 7-year-old daughter, Grace, gently clutching the side of his shirt, the weight of the last 3 years pressed on him like a shadow he couldn't shake off. His wife had passed away suddenly, leaving behind an emptiness that no amount of work, routine, or forced smiles could fill. Michael tried to be everything: mother, father, provider. But grief was a stubborn storm, and some days, he barely held the pieces together. Hiring a new project coordinator was supposed to be a simple business task, yet something in him whispered that this meeting might change more than just his company's schedule. If you believe in kindness, healing, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find stories filled with hope. The woman who stepped into the hallway introduced herself as Hannah, a young professional from Ohio who had recently moved to Chicago for a fresh start. She held her resume in trembling hands, though she tried to hide it behind a bright but nervous smile. Her soft brown hair brushed her shoulders, and her eyes carried a quiet mixture of determination and sadness, an emotion Michael recognized instantly, because he lived with it every day. As they walked toward the office conference room, Grace looked up at Hannah with unexpected curiosity. The little girl rarely warmed to anyone new, but something about Hannah's gentle presence made her loosen her grip and offer a shy smile. Inside the room, Michael began reviewing the questions he had prepared, but the interview quickly became something far more personal. Hannah spoke about her years of experience, but her voice wavered when she mentioned why she left her last job. Her mother had passed away the previous year, and the memories made it hard to stay in the same hometown where every street corner reminded her of loss. So she had packed everything into 2 suitcases and started over, hoping a new environment would give her space to breathe. Michael listened quietly, feeling every word settle into the hollow parts of his chest. He understood that kind of pain, the kind that didn't ask permission to reshape a life. After the interview ended, Grace tugged on his hand and whispered that she liked Hannah. It was the first opinion his daughter had voiced in months, and it struck him deeper than he expected. Children didn't always understand loss, but they felt absence like a cold wind, and for Grace, loneliness had become a constant companion. Michael drove home that night thinking about how Grace had looked at Hannah with a softness he hadn't seen in a long time. It was enough to make his decision clear. He hired Hannah the next morning. From her first week on the job, it became impossible not to notice the quiet impact she had on their small office. She brought life into the sterile hallways, organizing team lunches, leaving small notes of encouragement on coworkers' desks, and greeting everyone with a sincerity that made them feel seen. For Michael, who had carried the same burden for years, her presence felt like sunlight on a winter morning. She didn't pry into his personal life, but she understood the silences, the tired smiles, the way he sometimes got lost in thought. She had lived through her own storms, she recognized the signs. But what surprised him most was how Hannah connected with Grace. Michael occasionally brought his daughter to the office when childcare fell through. Grace, usually quiet and hesitant, began gravitating toward Hannah's desk as though it were a safe harbor. Hannah would show her little drawings she kept in a folder, share markers, or let Grace sit beside her while she worked. They laughed together, soft, genuine laughter Michael hadn't heard from his daughter since before the funeral. One afternoon, he walked into the break room and found Grace asleep in a chair, her head resting gently on Hannah's arm while Hannah continued typing with her free hand. She looked up at him with a shy smile, as if afraid she had crossed a line. But all he saw was warmth, a warmth his daughter desperately needed. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the walls around Michael's heart began to crack. He didn't understand it at first. He only knew that Hannah made the office feel like home, not just a place he dragged himself to each day. She filled the quiet moments with kindness, the stressful moments with steadiness, and the lonely moments with a sense of companionship he had forgotten existed. Grace adored her. Even Michael's closest friends noticed the way his voice softened when he talked about her. But Hannah carried her own fears. She worried about overstepping, about becoming too attached to a family that wasn't hers, about filling a space that maybe wasn't meant for her. She often stayed late, pretending she had extra tasks, simply because she didn't want to go back to her empty apartment. Some nights, she cried quietly, wondering if she was borrowing warmth she had no right to. Yet every time she saw Grace smile, or Michael breathe a little easier, she felt a pull toward them stronger than anything she had known. The turning point came one chilly December evening. A storm had rolled over Chicago, blanketing the streets in snow. Michael's car refused to start just as he was leaving the office with Grace. Hannah, who was still inside reviewing paperwork, noticed the lights flicker and stepped out to check on them. Without hesitation, she offered them a ride home. Grace happily climbed into the back seat, clutching her little pink backpack, while Michael sat beside Hannah, humbled by her kindness. The drive was slow and quiet, snow tapping softly against the windows. But halfway home, Grace broke the silence by saying, in her small, hopeful voice, that she wished Hannah could stay for hot cocoa. Hannah froze, her hands tightening on the steering wheel. The innocent request carried a weight she wasn't sure she was ready for. Michael glanced at her, his voice gentle as he said she didn't have to feel obligated. But Hannah shook her head. She wasn't obligated, she wanted to. Inside their warm living room, with the smell of cocoa and marshmallows filling the air, something shifted. Grace curled against Hannah on the couch, listening intently as she described winters back in Ohio. Michael watched them from the kitchen doorway, realizing suddenly and powerfully that his home hadn't felt this alive in years. The space once filled with grief now held laughter, warmth, connection. Not a replacement. Not a fix. But something new, something healing. By the time Hannah stood to leave, Grace hugged her tightly, refusing to let go for a few long seconds. And when Hannah finally stepped outside, Michael followed her, thanking her for everything she had unknowingly done for them. Hannah's eyes glistened with emotion as she admitted softly that they had done just as much for her. In that moment, the unspoken truth settled between them, they had become each other's missing piece. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more emotional stories every day. Before you go, please comment below, love can heal in unexpected ways. And that's the end of today's story.